Today, I've got a guest from New Jersey. The beautiful Maya is here to chat with us and talk about what she's achieved, not just with her raising her child, but also overcoming and getting on top of rheumatoid arthritis. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. It's such an honor.
Yeah, so we've got lots to talk about. You and I just did a brief 3.5 minute recap on your situation before we started recording. I want to hear it all fresh. I want to hear this. It's exciting to me because your story is unique in that you reached out to us initially when you were breastfeeding or pregnant, around about that zone in your life. And then you moved across and followed our program more stringently, and you've got amazing results. So let's hear your story.
Okay. Prior to reaching out to you, it was a struggle. I mean, we all know what that's like. I actually have two daughters, so I had a little one at the time, and it was just a struggle. I mean, after the second one was born, carting them around to daycare, in and out of the car seats was a struggle. I had morning stiffness throughout my body every morning. I was getting major flares, I'd say probably every 7 to 10 days in muscles and joints all over my body. I mean, from my shoulders to my ankles, to my knees, my hips, my elbows, places I didn't even know I had joints. Like the arm, I'm like, there's no joint there, but major, major pain. And I was trying to do it without the medication. I was on methotrexate, earlier on when I was first diagnosed, before having children.
How long ago was that, Maya?
I was diagnosed almost 6 years ago now.
Okay, 6 years. And if I may just sort of fill in some areas on this story, how old are your kids? Or should I say, how long did you have rheumatoid before you had
My younger daughter is 3.5. I was diagnosed at 30, just a couple months after turning 30. And I had my first daughter in 2014, so about 4 years.
Okay. So you'd experienced the whole sort of methotrexate and trying to battle through. Well, let's back up. How'd you get pregnant? Because you're not allowed to get pregnant on methotrexate.
Right.
So did you do some family planning there?
I did. I worked with my rheumatologist to kind of wean off the drug, and she said you have to be off of it for 3 months before you can even try.
Yeah.
That's what we did. We weaned it off. Clean for 3 months, and then we tried, and we were very lucky we got pregnant within the month after that. So 4 months.
Wow. Now, okay, and this is close to my heart too, because I was in the same situation trying to get off that drug to family plan. So tell me, now, when you came off the methotrexate, how were your symptoms leading into trying to get pregnant?
I actually did great. I think we caught it very early. So while I was on the methotrexate, I did great, and while I was off of it, I did great. I had very little symptoms, poking through, and I went into remission during that pregnancy. Awesome. And everything was pretty smooth, I would say. And after I gave birth to her, I was able to breastfeed her, but then symptoms started to pop back up. And it wasn't until my second pregnancy, which I was hoping I would be in remission just like my first, which was not the case. The second pregnancy was completely different. And that's when, I was forced to take, not forced, but I had to take prednisone during that pregnancy, which breaks your heart because you don't want to have to do that. Mm-hmm. So I would say the disease kind of progressed and escalated, in those, 4 or 5 years while I was, first diagnosed to now. So, yeah.
Now tell me, how were your eating habits during pregnancy? Because we notice, particularly in Western countries, when ladies get pregnant, they almost have a rite of passage to then eat like crazy, as if like they're not just feeding you and your baby, but you and your baby and every other person in the village. So did you sort of really gorge out on food, or did you just eat a little bit more?
Well, the first go around, I did. It was my first pregnancy, and I was, okay, it's a free pass, like you said. And I had been gluten-free because I had read about that piece of it affecting, the RA. So I had been gluten-free. Second I got pregnant, I was craving breads. I don't know if because I had been gluten-free for so long. So I was eating bagels with cream cheese. I was having ice cream every single night.
Wow. Okay.
But lucky enough, it didn't really
do anything. Yeah.
Very, very early on, I think.
Yeah.
The second pregnancy around, I had to be dairy free, gluten free. I was trying everything while still, intaking what I needed to be healthy for the pregnancy, but much more strict. No dairy, no gluten, very little meat, but I did have seafood every now and then. I was, doing your green juices at that point, but so very different.
Now, tell me, the common thing that we see is that after a pregnancy, rheumatoid really starts to flare up, to use that word, or get worse 2 to 3 months after having the delivery. Did you see any kind of pattern like that?
I did, after my first was born and during the breastfeeding, little flares would pop up here and there. And then progressing a little, every month it would be a little bit worse and a little bit worse. But I knew I did not want to go back on the methotrexate, which was against my rheumatologist's wishes, because I did do so great on it the first go around. But my eyes were now open to the fact that this drug is no good. If you can't get pregnant on it, what is it doing to my own body? And I had also in between that time gone to, like an Eastern medicine doctor. And this is after I'd given birth to a healthy baby girl. He told me, I would have advised you to stay off the drug longer than 3 months. I can't believe, she only told you 3 months. So now my eyes were open to the fact that this drug is no good. So I really did not want to go back on it. So I was trying to do everything possible to, be drug-free and eat the right way. But I really did not know enough at that point of what really needed to be done.
Okay. So, yeah, the 3 months is definitely like an absolute minimum. For us, we waited 12 months after I stopped methotrexate to start trying to have a family, not just because of the scariness of the drug toxicity, but also because I was still kind of quite weak. My muscles were still not very strong. I felt a little bit frail, even though I'd gotten rid of most of my joint pain. And so I just didn't feel like a man enough, if that makes sense. Yeah, I just didn't feel like I was worthy of trying to have a child at that point. Now, we were in a different situation because you had been given the green light, go off the drug and now quickly try and get pregnant, whereas I'd worked like crazy for years to get off the drug slowly, and then I felt like, now I can just rehabilitate my body a bit more. The pressure wasn't on, the clock wasn't ticking. So we took a lot of time. And then it took us 5 months to get pregnant after that. So we were about a year and 5 months or so after stopping before we fell pregnant. So
okay. The father's side too, not even, the mother who has to carry the child, even you cleaning it out of your body. So that's great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, so let's talk about when you started to make some changes along the ways that I talk about. So tell us when that started to be brought into your life. Sure. So as I mentioned, the second pregnancy was very different and the disease was just progressing and progressing. I was on the prednisone during the pregnancy, which I did not like. And then I got to a point probably about 7 months or so where this was enough. I needed to find a solution. I just knew in my bones that there had to be something else out there. And I'm looking. Somehow, by the grace of God, I landed on your page and was, instantly I knew that this is what I had been searching for. And I was so excited and downloaded your program and then realized I couldn't start it until after I was done, with the pregnancy and then breastfeeding. So I had to sit on your program for a full year. But during that time, it just progressed and it was such a struggle, after my second daughter was born. So now I had a 2-year-old and a newborn, and just I couldn't do certain things that a mother should be able to do, changing a diaper and playing and, just all of that. I had to rely heavily on my husband, a lot of the nightly wake ups. My hands didn't work. I couldn't lift her out of the crib and, things that just break your heart. It was really, really a struggle. So
can you just go into a little bit more like where the symptoms were? And I know you said your hands, and we don't like to think about it normally, but for the purposes of comparison, I mean, what was happening in your body in detail?
I mean, well, it started when I was diagnosed. It started in just a hand. I woke up one morning and a knuckle was swollen, and I thought I must have broken it. I don't remember hitting it, but it's got it broken or fractured. It's very painful and I can't move it at all. And so that's when I was diagnosed. But from there, it kind of spread very quickly. I didn't really have morning stiffness in the beginning, but I was getting major flares. My shoulders and my elbows, like all these large joints. And they would last a couple days, like even though the flare level would go down, but it was still painful and bending. And there were days, my husband had to carry me to the bathroom, just, it was horrible. It was just really, really horrible. And then as the disease progressed, I was starting to get the morning stiffness and I was like, oh, okay, this is what everybody else is talking about. This is horrendous. So that combined with the flares it was way too much,
Yeah.
all over. It was all the morning stiffness, maybe started in my hands and then I would notice it in my feet. And then, one morning I woke up, my body was just very stiff also, like easing into the day took a very long time, and with small kids and a full-time job, like I don't have time to be,
I know.
hands and just easing into the day. You have to be on it and ready to go,
Oh, absolutely. Goodness me. God.
The kids don't care. They don't know.
No, I know. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, wow. Okay, so yes, and that's when I started to come into, or you started to come into sort of my radar. I saw an email from you and we talked about needing to not do the elimination part of our program right away. We talked about eating more of a diverse diet, both for yourself and for baby, putting baby as a high priority. And then to postpone doing the program from start to finish the way that it's laid out until you had finished breastfeeding. So tell me how that went.
So I was, doing a modified version of your program and just introducing the green juices alone. Right away, I noticed a difference. The frequency of the flares was diminishing a little bit. There was still that morning stiffness here and there and the occasional flare, but I would say the time of the morning stiffness was shortened. Just things were decreasing, pain level wise. So it was great. And I knew that, if this is already happening and I'm not even following your program exactly yet, I knew that I was on the right track. So it was great. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I started it fully after I was officially done breastfeeding my second one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Now, how did that go? The first attempt?
The first attempt I started in May of last year, 2017, and I failed miserably. I as much knowledge as I thought I had at that time, and as I said, I had your program for a year, so I was able to read through it and really set myself up, gear myself up for this. I really didn't know enough. I didn't have enough patience and understanding of how long this process really takes. I started it in the first 12 days. Everything went away and I felt amazing. And I said, oh, this is great. I'm cured. I'm fixed. 12 days. That's all it took. So I did kind of jump around into introducing foods. I think the first thing I introduced was like an avocado, which is like, further down your program. Because I thought I was,
ready to go.
Yeah. 12 days, you're ready to go. And as your symptoms fade, you're so excited that you kind of forget how bad you had it before.
So
you're in this zone where everything's great. And right after the 12 days, morning stiffness came right back and flares came right back and prednisone came right back with it.
Wow.
And, I went through a couple months and I was really confused at that point. You listen to a lot of like forums on the Facebook groups and things like that. And you just get so much information thrown at you and you don't know what to listen to. This person's great on paleo. This person did AIP. So I did kind of jump around and try different diets. I did try the AIP diet and that wasn't working. And I was just getting very confused, listening to all this noise of, oh, this makes this person flare. Maybe I shouldn't eat that, and not really understanding that you just need to stop, focus on yourself. And, what works for that person may not be what works for you. What makes that person flare may not be something that makes you flare. You really need to listen to your own body. And I said, okay, what do I do? Because I'm miserable at this point. I'm not eating all these foods because I don't know what's, causing what. I have no idea. There's all these people that say they could identify their food triggers. I wasn't doing that because I was introducing a new food every single day and not really giving my body time to respond and see how it would respond. I was all over the place. So I said, you know what? The last time I felt great was when I started the Paddison program, those first 12 days. Let me restart it. Let me restart it and really focus this time and really do it exactly how the program is laid out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did. I started again in September. For me, I made charts. I have them right here.
Awesome. Yeah. Look at that. That's
I
awesome.
laid it out day 1 to like 120.
Yeah.
And I put all the foods that you were going to be eating that day.
Yeah.
And that's what helped me stay on track, because as much as day 12, I'm feeling good again, I want to introduce something. I said, no, look where you'll be 10 days from now, 20 days from now. By Christmas, I'm going to be eating this, much food again. So it was difficult to cut out so much in the beginning for me. And, just having that eye on the prize and seeing where I would be able to be, that helped me stay on track this time around. And those were my goals. So I could see, week after week where I would be. And I've never looked back. I'm in a place now. I have been drug-free for months. I have no pain. I can play with my kids. I can drop them off at daycare. I can exercise 4 times a week. It's amazing. It's amazing. And I don't miss any of the foods that I've had to cut out. The cravings have changed. I used to crave the sugar and coffee, and now I actually crave vegetables. Like, if you knew me before, like, I rarely ate vegetables, like it's probably where some of my symptoms even started, but your cravings just change, and you listen to your body more, and it's amazing. It's amazing. And I can't thank you enough. It's all it's all because of your program, It's been great.
Well done. Just makes me just so happy to hear this, It's amazing how these changes can happen, and it's amazing how delicate the path is and how narrow that path is through the mountain. This is a very, very delicate process, and it's why most people shrug and say diet doesn't matter, or they, say that it's too difficult, because if you don't get everything right, then diet doesn't work, you see? So we saw that after 12 days, unless you get it perfect, this will fail too. It has to be perfect.
Right.
And, yeah. And I think that you mentioned something about listening to your own body, and what that sort of falls into the category of when I think about this from a big picture is it's under the category of just taking responsibility. See, when we're on Facebook or when we're on a free online forum and just looking around and listening to others who are just putting a tiny fraction of their knowledge or experience into 1 or 2 little sentences, it doesn't have a framework. It doesn't have some kind of positioning at all. It's just a comment from someone. We don't know how many drugs they're on or what they were doing before, or if, it's just all out of context. And what we need to do is take responsibility, like you said, and listen to our own body and follow a path of highest success probability, which is make it all plants, make it low fat, make it whole foods, and start with alkalizing foods and work your way through from there, like our program. And you've a great example of that.
Yeah, I would absolutely recommend the program to anybody. And just, I hope that everyone else can find success, because it is absolutely possible. And as much as you might be in a dark time and thinking that it can't be possible, just do whatever you can to get out of that and start the program. And really, in months, you could be where I am now. I recommend it to anybody. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Let's go through the way that you did this. I saw that wonderful picture that you've got there. It looks to me like it's been printed on A3 large paper, and it looks like it's done in color. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've created there? Is that something you've used the Works office printer to?
I don't normally keep a printed copy, but I printed it to show you. I normally just keep it at work. And I would, list the days of the program. Now I'm on day 162 or something like that.
Yeah.
And what I introduced that day, what food I was introducing.
Okay.
And then I would put my symptoms. I could see the first day, my left pointer, my left wrist, 25%, my right of my foot, and morning stiffness lasting 45 minutes, and it's great because now looking back on this, I hadn't printed it and I hadn't really scrolled up when I was doing it on the computer either. But looking back, it really shows how far you've come, and I could see, as the months went on, no morning stiffness, or I could even see the pain levels, the percentages decreasing, and I would try to list foods that I thought could be triggering. So those I would highlight in red, because I could kind of see how long it would take for me to kind of flare up from that. And it is color coded. I did it based on your food introduction. So the first 12 days I put in blue, and then the next whatever, so I could kind of see what foods I could be introducing at that point. I would also list like an additional comment. Did I try to exercise that day? How did I do? Did I take any medication that day? Things like that. And then I have little notes like Thanksgiving I had in here. So I knew, those could have caused some flare-ups because I ate maybe, even though I stayed on the program, my sister was fantastic this Christmas. She made foods, everything that I could eat, my diets and what foods I was able to eat at that time. But even so, you're not doing the cooking, so you never know, So, but things like that, just any sort of comments I would introduce. So that chart, it helped every day I'd come into work and just quickly jot down, what I'm eating that day and my symptoms, and that's it.
It's exactly what I did. Exactly what I did. We had small, different ways of representing the information, but that's also what I did. It's kind of an elaborate. It's an elaborate food diary in a kind of spreadsheet format because a lot of the things that we're eating each day are the same as we go down. So we don't have to list them all again. We just have to list the new ones. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I figured that out later on because the columns are really thick, but I eventually realized that.
Yeah. And I love the comment section because that's exactly what I still do to this day with my gym book. So I take little books with me to the gym. They're only about the size of my palm, about this big, and I can fit them in the glove box of my car. And I go into the gym and I create a table just like you've done there. And what I do is I write down the date, my weight, which gym I'm at, because we travel a lot in different gyms. And then I write down across the top, I've got all the different exercises that I do that I know are safe for my body given its physical limitations from the joint damage that I had. Okay, so some things I can't do, and I leave all them out, and I've found over the years I can do about 16 different things that help me feel strong, feel good, and don't hurt the damaged joints in my elbows and my left knee. And then I write down how many reps I did and so on. And over the right-hand side, I have comments. And if something, for instance, just irritates my wrist because I'm trying to lift a lot of weight, or at the moment I'm trying to do chin-ups. I'm trying to do as many chin-ups as I can because it's something I haven't been able to do for like 10 years or something. And so I noticed that things can tweak a little bit because it's a lot of my own body weight's a lot for me, given that what I've been through. And so I make comments all the time. And so I've got what I'm doing, all my comments. If I do a Bikram yoga class that day instead, I just write Bikram, and I'm always documenting this stuff because once we have a condition that affects our body to this extent, whether it be inflammation or dealing with damage or whatever, we've got to keep a track of what we're doing because the evidence is there when we go and look back and we're able to see trends and see identify causes of these things. So I still do it to this day now with my gym.
Yeah, it's amazing. The other thing I have on this is a second tab, and I had images of my hands. Day 1, this is what my hands looked like, and day, 15 days in, 30 days in. So I could see literally the inflammation in my fingers going down. I had a ring on this finger that was stuck. I couldn't get it off because the inflammation was so big. And finally it came off. The inflammation little by little went, down and down. So I was able to get it off. And looking at those pictures, it's incredible too, being able to see the progress that you've made there. So if anyone found this at work, they'd be like, what is this spreadsheet she's working on? But, you need to go into depth and, document all of that. Otherwise you're going to, I think, get thrown off track like I did my first go around because you're not realizing maybe what foods could be triggering you, or exercises like you mentioned. You have to really understand that and listen to it. And then the other thing is introducing foods, like giving your body time to see if you have a reaction to them. For me, I was doing a new food every single day, and that was too quick for me because I noticed the flare or the inflammation would happen kind of the next night or maybe even the second morning after eating that food. So
Wow. Yeah, okay.
about the first go around, I was just so excited to be able to eat different foods again that I started doing whatever I wanted, and that you can't do that. You really have to take it slow, have patience, and know that in a couple months from now, you're going to be in an amazing spot. So,
awesome. Now,
yeah.
just some tips for others who are doing the same thing that you just did so well. Tell me, did you eventually just decide, look, I'm going to wait 2 days for every food just to keep it consistent, or what did you do with that?
Well, at first I was waiting every 2 days, and then I did have a reaction to a food. And it was the next night. So once I knew how long it really took my body to react, then I had a baseline. So now I knew I could wait, about 36 hours I was doing. So one morning I would do a food, and then the following day's night I would introduce a new food.
Oh, interesting.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And I want to ask you about your pain scoring, this 25%, 50% thing. What does that mean?
That was just how much pain I was in, what I rate it to be, or the inflammation level. I would say, listening to other people's stories, that maybe my condition was a little better than most cases, luckily, or if I caught it early or what. But it was bad enough where it was, puffy and painful to bend, that like a 25%, 50% would be pretty bad. But 5%, 10% was a little less. And then I was rating it down to even like 0.5%. Like right now I would say I'm at a 0.5% in a couple fingers. That's it, and that's like very minimal, in 5 minutes I move it and I'm on my way, my day is ready to go. So,
yes.
Yeah. So it's my own gauging system, I guess, but however you want to rate it. I know you did like a 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever works. So how your pain was that day. Whatever you got to do.
Yeah. And some people would say, but it's not quantitative. Well, it's the best we can do given the circumstances, because as long as it's relative to previous markings, then it doesn't matter. Like, for instance, if someone rated just a little bit of tenderness, like a 6 out of 10, which would probably be a little bit high, as long as when it drops to a 3, then we're good, right? Then we can see comparative figures, yeah?
Right.
And this isn't for our doctors. It's not for our family. This is just for us. And it works well, as you've just demonstrated.
Right. As long as you can see the numbers going down.
Yeah.
Then you're doing something right, And I can tell you that it jives with my blood test. I can tell you when I felt that I was at my lowest and the pain was at its greatest, my blood levels were at their highest at those times, and it's all right there,
Mm-hmm.
And now I just got my blood test back 2-3 weeks ago. Everything's all within normal range. So it definitely relates to how I'm feeling now, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I've got 3 more questions at least queued in my brain. I might think of some more.
Shoot.
The first one is, do you have any tips on how to get off prednisone, or did you find that was relatively straightforward once you were stricter with the program?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was straightforward. You kind of know when you need it and when you don't. I was not taking it regularly. I was only really taking it when I needed.
That's the difference. That's the difference.
I wasn't on it. I didn't need it. There were certain days I had a little morning stiffness, but if there was no flare, and you power through the morning stiffness and you're fine. But during a flare is when it's just so painful and you can't lift your arm or something, it's getting in the way. I would take it for maybe 3 days at a time. So I stopped it when the flares stopped, as soon as I got on your program, and the flares went from every 7 to 10 days to every 20 days to no flares at all. That's when I kind of weaned off of it. The last one I took was the end of November. I mentioned Thanksgiving. It was probably something I ate then, kind of threw me into a flare, and that was it,
Okay.
Last time I've touched it.
Yeah, good. And, my comment about that's the difference, what I mean by that is What gets extremely challenging is when people are on it for multiple months consecutively.
Yeah.
Even several weeks consecutively, it starts to get a little bit delicate, because at that point, even then, it can be hard to taper off. And it
Yeah.
becomes this addictive sort of, almost like your body depends upon it. And when you're taking it intermittently, like you were, almost like people do with their non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, I think that it's a different set of circumstances.
Yeah, it might be. It might be. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all, individualized. You really got to
Yeah.
what kind of you need to do, you know?
Yes. Okay.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
Now, exercise. How much importance did you place on it, and how did you use exercise?
Exercise has been amazing. Prior to your program, I had always been a runner. And that's really it. I would just run, or occasionally I'd go to the gym and do some like the group exercise classes. But Bikram yoga, I went, per your suggestion, has been incredible. I go now, 4 times a week. And this morning I went and I dragged my husband, his first time going.
Awesome.
Just because it's great. It's really beneficial, I think. Whether you have RA or not, I think, obviously it's beneficial. There's so many people that do it and have such success with it. But something with the heat and just, making sure you're continuously moving your joints and muscles that don't always get used, just running, I wasn't really using a lot of different muscles. So it's been incredible. The Bikram yoga I especially recommend, and I think that's crucial to success also.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Another reminder to people, is if they didn't need it already, about the importance and the most powerful effectiveness of Bikram yoga.
Yeah.
If you didn't have Bikram, would there be anything else that you could recommend to someone who can't access it?
Even just stretching, I think, helps, and just paying attention to the smaller joints, like stretching your fingers and doing, hand exercises is helpful for me also. But I think, again, it's individualized. You have to find what's working for you, be it kickboxing or, soccer, or anything you want to do to just kind of move your body. But I do think it's so important to continuously move, those muscles, and making sure, because otherwise, if there's a couple days that go that I don't exercise, I do kind of notice things are stiffening back up, so I definitely think it's important. But yeah, what exercise, I don't know. Again, listen to your own body and figure it out,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you're definitely into the fortunate category, in that you've got a Bikram studio near enough to you that you can get to. But even having that, a lot of people still have that opportunity and they still don't go. So you have to take the action. As you know, it takes up a lot of time. It consumes a lot of your energy. Sometimes you feel exhausted. Sometimes after class, if you've had a big day, or you've eaten too close to class, or you haven't drank enough water, or you're tired when you went, whatever. So it's still, just because it's nearby doesn't mean that you're doing it. And so I say, with Bikram yoga, the hardest part is getting there. Once you get there, then, they'll walk you through it. You just have to tune out and listen. But getting there, there's so many barriers. Sometimes you'll do anything to avoid going. Sometimes,
That's what I used to say, I think even before I was diagnosed, like when you're looking at a food menu, as I said, I always hated vegetables, but the hardest part is ordering that salad. Once it comes, it's delicious. It just
That's
doesn't look as delicious as the other foods on the menu. The hardest part is just order it. So just go to yoga. And the rest is, the rest will come easy. So for sure.
Wonderful.
For sure.
Wonderful. Well, I want to ask you about, did you find that there were any crucial supplements to take, or do you feel that they only played a small part?
Supplements were huge for me, actually. The first go around in your program, or even the second time, the second time I started your program and found success, the first couple days or even the first month, you're not eating a lot of foods. You really need to give your body that time to cleanse everything out. For me, I take a ton of different supplements that are helpful to me. I take the glutamine, I take bromelain, vitamin B, vitamin D, a multivitamin, a whole bunch of others. She also put me on almost like a cat's claw, which I had never heard.
Sure. Yeah.
I think is great. I don't know what's doing what. I'm at a point where I don't want to change anything. I don't know what's doing what, but that one I really think, because when I've run out of it, and there's been like a couple days that go before the new order comes in,
Yeah.
I notice things dipping a little bit. So that one I think is helpful. But yeah, for me, the supplements were crucial for me. I needed them, but now that I'm at a point where I'm able to eat so many different foods, I may start weaning those out, and seeing how I do, so I can because it's expensive,
It is. It is expensive.
Seeing what I actually need and what I don't need.
Yeah.
Taking a bunch.
Did you have any probiotics or any fermented foods in your regime?
Yes, probiotics for sure, and finding the right one. I'm currently on like a spore, the mega spores. Like through you, I've been introduced to all these other doctors and things like that, and I found a couple videos on probiotics. So I'm on like a spore based one that I guess is supposedly supposed to be beneficial toward it actually gets to the gut area that it needs to get and actually can populate and survive, but who knows? It could just be a bunch of marketing. But I'm in a good place, and the one I'm on now works. But you do have to find the right probiotic for sure. Fermented foods, something I didn't mention. I actually got through that holistic doctor food sensitivity testing done because I was having a hard time making heads or tails of it, and I know those aren't a true science, I know, but just to see.
Yeah.
And one of the things I reacted to was brewer's yeast.
Brewer's yeast. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had to take out, I couldn't really have fermented foods because I guess it for 3 months. They say to eliminate it and then kind of bring things back in. So it's been 4 months now since I haven't had that. I started with I tried a kombucha the other day to see how I did with that. So I haven't really done too much of the introducing of the fermented foods back in my diet, but just because I'm scared, I'm scared to eat these foods again that I did have reactions to,
You when you can't get better results than what you've currently got, there's no real room to improve, then there's no real need to add those foods back in.
Yeah.
Those foods replace or substitute your own insufficient gut bacteria, okay?
Right.
But if you're able to digest, which means ferment, right, to break down or to metabolize the foods that you're eating, then you have the gut bacteria already to do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'd be in no hurry at all to go and challenge something that subconsciously you feel nervous about, because that's only going to potentially rock the boat.
Yeah. Okay. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, we know there are health benefits to consuming foods that are rich in healthy bacteria.
Right.
But it's such a delicate ecosystem inside that, I personally would be satisfied with the results that you've got, which are tremendous. I mean, you're not on any medications, you've got barely any symptoms, and you have control over your situation. I mean, you've hit this point of complete confidence and control. Okay. And that's our ultimate goal. And therefore, I wouldn't be in a hurry either. And you've got your probiotics that you're taking in supplemental form.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you weren't as good as you were, then you would be in an exploration phase.
Searching, right.
But you're not. So why change it? Nothing beats results. If you've got the results, nothing needs changing unless your diet is nutritionally incomplete or you don't have enough daily calories. Then you need to make changes, but you have neither of those scenarios happening.
Yeah, I am in a good place. Okay, good. Yeah. I don't really like fermented foods. So.
Right.
I was like, I don't really want to try them out. But I, the miso paste, I do like that. I put that on the basmati rice, like you mentioned. That's
there you
good.
Go. You are having fermented foods then.
Yeah, just not, I guess, like the sauerkraut and kimchi and things like that.
Yeah, but I mean, how often do we want to be eating those foods when we're out and about anyway? They're not sort of convenient sort of foods that we want, like rices and potatoes and corns and breads and things that we really want to eventually be eating a lot of, because those we can eat out all the time. We can have them at restaurants all the time, pasta, So there'll always be barriers. There'll always be restrictions, but those barriers get wider and wider and wider. And the one thing that I think everyone with an inflammatory autoimmune disease will always have to be careful of is always oils. For the rest of our lives, we're going to have to watch out for those oils, those vegetable oils. Yeah. They are just kindling, and even if if you think of a campfire and the fire's been extinguished, you can't even see the red embers anymore sitting in there. Mm-hmm. But if you were to throw tiny little bits of kindling and maybe blow on it a little bit, just you might be able to get that fire going again. And I think we're always going to have that little bit of ash, a little bit of potential embers that are always going to be in that campfire.
Yeah. You're right.
So, I'll never be complacent till the day I die. Never, ever. I will never want to eat foods again that can potentially get that thing going again.
Yeah. It's amazing how your cravings change, like I mentioned before, like I see in the office, there's so many treats and things like that. And I don't even look at that. I mean, that's not even on my radar, Awesome. It's amazing how you can change because that was not me. I love sweets and cakes and coffee cakes and donuts and coffee even,
Right.
It's just funny how it's only been a couple months and, it's unbelievable. So in 5-6 months time, for me anyway, you could be in an amazing place. So
yeah, well, you are. You've actually gotten there. You're in the location that you've been seeking, and all you need to do now is to continue to apply the discipline and to maintain it. This whole thing is about discipline. Your whole story that you've just described is a tremendous display of discipline. That's what it is,
Yeah.
Discipline with your record keeping, discipline with your eating, discipline with your avoidance of temptations, discipline with going to Bikram yoga 4 times a week. Okay?
Yeah.
Discipline with your little hand exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And discipline with restocking those supplements that you felt have been important. And if we were to have more of a microscope and spend a longer time with you in your life, we would find another 10, 15, 20 examples of where you've applied this discipline. And so that's what it all comes down to. Mm-hmm. Is the discipline to also continue to seek answers when the answers aren't there. Mm-hmm. That's a discipline in itself, because sometimes, I used to go for months on end where I wasn't improving. In my whole experience with this condition when I was trying to get well was months and months of pretty much nothing showing up in terms of results, with intermittent improvements, which I was then able to maintain for months and months before getting some more improvements. For me, it was there were long periods of not much showing up in terms of success.
Yeah.
But remember that success with this condition is not worsening. That's a success.
Correct.
I've got a little bit of a dilemma at the moment where I've got clients who watch podcasts and hear your story and everyone else who's been on this show, and their expectations are insane compared to when I first started doing this and helping people. Expectations now are higher than ever before. People think, okay, I'm going to do Paddison program and I'm going to be off my drugs in 3 months and I'm going to be back to my normal life. And man, I've set this problem up for myself, or put it like, where the expectations are so high now that this is also another challenge. This is another challenge that we're facing, in that people need to realize that this disease is excruciatingly challenging, and to just not worsen, to not increase drugs is a good result. Rheumatologists think that's a great result. But of course what we need to say is, okay, well, what's our goal here? Let's set the bar that is quite easy to jump over, so that if we clear it easily, we're going to feel happy. Not set the bar, no drugs, no pain in 3 months. This does not help anyone. It's unrealistic.
Right.
It's stressful. And frankly, it probably won't happen. So
would you say the longer that people have the disease or the severity levels of people's diseases is an indication of how long they need to stick with the program before they start to see results? Someone who maybe had, RA for 10 years before starting your program, they may not in 3 months, 6 months, but a year from now, sticking with your program, they would see improvements. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everyone sees improvements. There's very rarely a case, if ever, where if people don't make some of the crucial mistakes that they don't get improvements. Again, so the crucial mistakes are changing or dropping medications right before starting.
Yeah.
Okay. So that sounds ludicrous and stupid, but people do it all the time. Right. So they get like 2 weeks in and they say, I'm not making progress or I feel worse. My first question is always, okay, what medications have you just dropped? And that's always the answer. Okay. Yeah. So we know that the program says don't change any medications before starting because we want to see the effect of this program against a background that is steady. Yeah.
Right. You want to compare apples to apples.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And then the other thing, common mistakes that people will make. Actually, I can't think of too many. Virtually, if you don't do that, virtually everyone improves, right? But in terms of people who've had it for a very long time, the question then actually needs to be molded into this question. What strategy with medications, exercise, supplementations, stress reduction, and diet is in place? Because we all get so one trick pony with the diet. We're all obsessed about the diet.
Right.
But like you, right, if you'd have been on prednisone every single day for the past 6 months leading into this program, our strategy wouldn't be to try and get you to be what our strategy would be to try and get you off prednisone as the first objective.
Right.
That would be first objective because whilst being on that drug, you are trying to fight a boxing match with 2 hands behind your back, okay? Because it's just so deleterious to the gut wall, okay? Yeah. So we wouldn't be targeting maximum pain relief and so forth. We'd be trying to get off that drug. Of course, we want pain relief, but we'd be also we'd have a strategy in place, and then once off that drug, then we'd be trying to get pain as low as possible, then add some more foods. And then if someone's on prednisone, they're normally on other drugs like disease-modifying drugs or biologics and stuff like that. And so then, with patients and so forth, we slowly look at regular blood tests and physical symptoms and consultations with the rheumatologist and then start discussions about, reducing the number of drugs or the dosages of these drugs. Yeah. So every case is different. Every case is different.
That's why you need to listen to yourself and not everything else that's out there because you'll get lost like I did that first time around, You really need to hone in on yourself and your case, like you said. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, that's right. So, well, this has been really enjoyable and I'm thrilled to be able to hear what you've told me today and excited for where you're going to take this in the future.
Yes, thank you so much for talking to me. It's been fantastic.
Awesome, Maya. Well, thanks so much, and drop us a line in a couple of months, and I look forward to hearing your continual improvements and wishing you all the best.
Thank you. Same to you. Will do. Take care.